There is a quiet fear almost everyone carries, but almost no one names. The fear of being seen as harsh, the fear of being disliked, the fear that if you stop being kind, something essential will be taken from you. Your humanity, your worth, your belonging. So you soften your words even when clarity would protect you. You explain your intentions even when no one asked. You forgive quickly, automatically, reflexively, before the wound has even closed. You tell yourself this is maturity. You tell yourself this is strength. You tell yourself this is what good people do. But beneath that polished self-image, there is another sensation growing heavier with time. Exhaustion. A bone-deep fatigue that comes from constantly adjusting yourself, while others never adjust at all. From carrying the emotional weight of rooms you didn't destabilize. From being reasonable in a world that quietly rewards leverage, not virtue. This exhaustion is not random. It is the cost of unguarded kindness. And kindness, when it becomes automatic, is not a moral act. It is a structural flaw. It is a leak in your psychological armor, and leaks are almost impossible to notice until the structure collapses without warning. In dark psychology, kindness is not measured by intent. It is measured by exposure. Kindness, when offered without containment, signals an open nervous system. It tells the world, I will regulate myself around you. It whispers, I can absorb pressure. To predatory minds, this is not goodness. It is opportunity. Ruthlessness, by contrast, is almost always misunderstood. It is painted as cruelty, coldness, or malice. But at its core, ruthlessness is not about harming others. It is about refusing to leak. It is containment. The disciplined ability to withhold emotional supply, explanations, forgiveness, and access until conditions are met. If kindness is a door that swings open at the slightest knock, ruthlessness is a locked gate with a guard who asks questions. Not angrily, not emotionally. Simply because that is how structures survive. Think of it architecturally. Kindness is an open courtyard, beautiful, inviting, filled with light. Anyone can enter, and they do. Guests, strangers, opportunists, thieves. Ruthlessness is a fortress. It does not announce aggression. It does not chase passers-by. It simply stands, walls in place, gates controlled, guards alert. History does not remember the most welcoming cities. History remembers the cities that could not be taken. Empires did not fall because they lacked kindness. They fell because they lacked boundaries, because they trusted too early, because they confused openness with strength. Philosophers understood this long before neuroscience gave it language. Machiavelli was not warning rulers to be evil. He was warning them not to be naive. His crime was saying out loud what power had always practiced quietly. Goodness without protection invites domination. Nietzsche did not celebrate cruelty. He dissected weakness disguised as morality. He saw how people call their fear of confrontation virtue and their inability to say no compassion. Modern psychology now confirms what these thinkers intuited. Human beings are wired to respect what does not need them. Neediness destabilizes hierarchies. Containment stabilizes them. The brain assigns value to what is scarce, regulated, and self-possessed. What leaks is managed. What contains is deferred to. You see this every day, even if you've never named it. The coworker who always helps, always covers shifts, always explains mistakes away, always says, "It's okay, I understand." They are liked, they are praised, and they are quietly overlooked when promotions appear. They are overworked, underpaid, taken for granted. Then there is the other one. Not rude, not cruel, just firm, limited availability, clear reactions. When something crosses a line, access changes. That person is consulted, deferred to, protected. Same intelligence, same role, different posture. One leaks, the other contains. This is where discomfort begins, because part of you recognizes yourself in the first image, and another part of you is tired of it. Dark psychology does not ask you to abandon kindness. It asks you to discipline it, to stop offering it as a reflex, to stop using it as a shield against conflict. The most dangerous people you will ever meet are not openly hostile. They are calm, they are observant, and they are drawn to open gates. So the first step is not action, it is diagnosis. Begin noticing where your kindness is automatic, where your yes appears before thought, where explanations spill out uninvited, where you forgive patterns instead of incidents, hoping consistency will be rewarded with care. Do not correct anything yet. Observation comes first. Awareness is the first tightening of the gate, the first stone laid in the wall. As you begin to see these leaks, something subtle but powerful happens. Your reactions slow. Your eagerness dulls. The world feels less urgent, less demanding. You stop standing in the middle of an open field, exposed to every approach. You begin to feel structure around you. Not hostility, not bitterness. Structure. Walls rising quietly, deliberately. And for the first time, the pressure is no longer everywhere. It is outside. First contact feels innocent. A meeting, a date, a handshake, a message on a screen. A casual introduction that seems harmless, almost forgettable. But psychologically, first contact is never neutral. It is a silent duel disguised as politeness, a positioning ritual disguised as conversation. Most people enter these moments with one hidden objective: to be liked, to be approved of, to signal safety, warmth, and good intentions as quickly as possible. They believe this is how connection is built. They do not realize that the first 5 minutes quietly decide something far more permanent: who will be framing the interaction and who will spend months, sometimes years, responding inside that frame. Who will explain themselves? Who will be explained to? Who will chase clarity? Who will define reality? This is where kindness betrays its owner. In dark psychology, the frame is the invisible story that answers one question: who holds value here? Not who is smarter, not who is nicer. Who sets the psychological gravity? The kind person enters first contact like water poured onto uneven ground. They spread, they adapt, they adjust tone, energy, pace, humor. They mirror, they soften. Their nervous system scans constantly for feedback, trying to fit perfectly into the other person's emotional shape. The ruthless person enters differently. They arrive like stone, present, contained, self-supported, not cold, not aggressive, simply unmoved by the terrain. They do not rush to synchronize. They let others do the adjusting. The human brain notices this instantly, long before language catches up. Our brains are ancient machines designed to survive hierarchies, not fairness. Calm nervous systems signal leadership. Regulated presence signals authority. Over-explaining, over-smiling, over-giving signal uncertainty, not weakness of character, weakness of position. In tribal history, the one who spoke the least was often the one whose approval mattered most. In royal courts, those closest to power were not the most expressive, but the most contained. Silence was not emptiness. It was threat, mystery, leverage. Modern society pretends these instincts disappeared. They didn't. They simply wear better clothes. Kindness in first contact often rushes intimacy. It tries to collapse distance too fast. It uses warmth as a bridge because distance feels unsafe. Ruthlessness does the opposite. It delays intimacy. It allows space, and space creates gravity. Gravity creates authority. What is too available becomes common. What is regulated becomes valuable. The one who is not trying to impress is unconsciously placed above the one who is. This is not opinion. This is hierarchy psychology. You see it everywhere once you know how to look. Picture two people walking into a negotiation. One fills the silence with friendliness. They joke. They share personal stories. They explain context before being asked. They want to create comfort. The other listens. They ask one precise question. Then they wait. Silence stretches. The first person keeps talking, trying to relieve the pressure. Guess who controls the pace? Guess who reveals more information? Guess who leaves with better terms? The ruthless person never raised their voice, never threatened, never dominated. They simply did not leak. First contact is not about winning. It is about not losing ground you never get back. Once someone places you in the explainer role, you will fight uphill forever. Once you are framed as eager, flexible, accommodating, you will be tested again and again. Not because people are evil, but because systems probe for limits the way water probes for cracks. The kind person takes these tests personally. The ruthless person understands them structurally. Protection here is simple, but uncomfortable. Remove excess. Speak slower. Answer directly. Do not volunteer personal information. Let pauses exist without filling them. Do not rush warmth. Warmth is powerful only when it is earned. It should feel like a reward, not a reflex. Silence is not awkward when you are not afraid of losing approval. It is only awkward for the person who needs something. As you do this, you will feel a shift almost immediately. The other person leans forward. Their questions change. Their tone adjusts. They begin to calibrate themselves around you instead of the other way around. The frame has moved. Quietly, irreversibly. You are no longer entering their world, adapting to their expectations, chasing alignment. They are stepping into yours, sensing boundaries they did not expect, and responding accordingly. Power has not been taken. It has simply been reclaimed. Pressure reveals character, but more importantly, it reveals position. Deadlines compress time. Conflict compresses emotion. Accusations compress identity. Voices rise. Messages multiply. Stakes feel urgent. This is the moment most people believe kindness finally proves its value. They step forward to calm, to soothe, to fix, to repair the emotional field before it explodes. They believe peace is power. They believe resolution is victory. But pressure is not a moral test. It is a structural one. And under pressure, unguarded kindness becomes the most exploitable trait a person can have. When tension enters a room, the kind person feels it in their body immediately. Their nervous system spikes. They feel responsible for restoring balance, even if they did not disrupt it. They apologize quickly to de-escalate. They explain intentions to avoid being misunderstood. They soften language, add emotional cushioning, offer reassurance. Their goal is relief. They want the discomfort gone. They want the storm to pass. The ruthless person experiences the same pressure, but responds differently. They do not seek relief. They seek information. They allow the tension to rise because pressure forces truth to the surface. Under pressure, masks crack, words slip, patterns reveal themselves. This is not cruelty. It is observation. Ancient generals understood this long before psychology described it. Sieges were rarely about brute force. They were about patience. You did not waste resources smashing walls if time itself could weaken the enemy. You waited. You restricted exits. You watched morale decay. Eventually, desperation spoke. People betrayed themselves under sustained pressure. Modern social conflict works the same way. Emotional pressure is a siege on the nervous system. The one who cannot tolerate it reveals weakness. The one who can regulate it becomes dominant without lifting a finger. Psychology explains this with brutal clarity. Pressure increases cognitive load. As emotional arousal rises, the brain's ability to think strategically collapses. The prefrontal cortex, the seat of reasoning, goes offline. The limbic system takes over. Whoever remains regulated becomes the reference point. Their calm becomes the emotional North Star. The anxious brain automatically orients toward the regulated one, seeking cues, permission, resolution. This is not a moral hierarchy. It is a nervous system hierarchy. The calm brain leads, the reactive brain follows. This is why under pressure, kindness often flips into caretaking. The kind person unconsciously becomes the emotional manager of the situation. They track moods. They soothe reactions. They absorb blame. Over time, this role hardens into identity. They are no longer an equal participant. They are the stabilizer, the fixer, the one responsible for harmony. And responsibility without authority is the fastest path to resentment and invisibility. You see this dynamic constantly in relationships. An argument erupts. One person apologizes quickly, even if the issue is complex. They explain their intentions in detail. They soften tone. They validate feelings prematurely. The other person remains still. They listen. They respond only to facts. They do not chase resolution. Over time, something subtle but permanent occurs. One person becomes the emotional caretaker. The other becomes the authority. Not because they are smarter, not because they are right, but because they can tolerate discomfort longer. Pressure is where manipulators hunt. They escalate emotion to force leaks. They accuse vaguely. They create urgency. They push for immediate resolution. Kindness mistakes this urgency for necessity. Ruthlessness recognizes it as a tactic. Dark psychology does not teach you to escalate back. It teaches you to decelerate, to slow the battlefield until the other person's strategy collapses under its own weight. Protection here is discipline. When pressure rises, slow everything. Lower your voice. Reduce your words. Strip out emotional justifications. Do not explain your heart. Do not rescue others from discomfort they created. Let silence stretch. Let accusations hang without immediate response. This feels dangerous at first because you have been conditioned to believe that silence equals guilt. It does not. Silence equals control when it is chosen. The effect is immediate and profound. The emotional storm does not disappear. It moves. It collapses around you instead of inside you. The other person fills the space with more words, more emotion, more exposure. They escalate themselves. You remain intact, grounded, observant. Control returns to your hands not through force, but through refusal to leak. You are no longer managing chaos. You are watching it reveal its shape. Time exposes illusions. Days turn into weeks, weeks into months, months into years. Patterns emerge, behaviors repeat, roles crystallize. In these rhythms, the casual acts of kindness or ruthlessness from earlier interactions compound into reputations, expectations, and unspoken hierarchies. This is the arena where people either earn lasting respect or become expendable resources. Time does not care about intent. It rewards structure, predictability, and containment. Unchecked kindness, when repeated over months, can become a liability. Uncalibrated generosity signals availability. Predictable compliance signals weakness. The person who bends too easily becomes invisible in systems built to favor those who control access, attention, and consequence. Kindness over the long term invests without conditions. It gives endlessly, assumes reciprocation, forgives patterns instead of incidents, and sustains relationships even when the other party shows disregard. In dark psychology, this is considered exposure over time, a slow, almost invisible depletion of authority. Ruthlessness, in contrast, invests with rules. It evaluates behavior, calibrates responses, and enforces boundaries consistently. It understands that long-term power is not the sum of single interactions, but the accumulation of strategically reinforced patterns. Psychology calls this reinforcement. Humans are wired to repeat actions that are rewarded and avoid actions that are ignored or punished. The brain encodes social consequences into behavioral routines, creating habits that are hardwired over time. Dark psychology reframes this as training. The strongest minds do not rely on charm or force. They rely on consistent, structural feedback that conditions others to act predictably around them. Throughout history, rulers understood this principle intuitively. Kings did not maintain empires through affection. They ruled through predictable consequences. Respect was not a byproduct of liking someone. It was structural. When a subject transgressed, a consequence arrived, immediate or delayed, but inevitable. When a subject honored the rules, rewards came, measured and scarce. Predictability created fear, admiration, and obedience. Philosophers from Machiavelli to Sun Tzu recognized that power is not about pleasing. It is about shaping behavior over time. Intermittent reinforcement, a reward administered occasionally, never guaranteed, creates the strongest attachment, the deepest psychological leverage. It is what makes soldiers loyal, employees efficient, children obedient, and allies dependable. Unconditional kindness, no matter how moral it feels, does not leverage these psychological mechanisms. It becomes a soft pattern to exploit, a predictable corridor that manipulators walk freely. In daily life, these dynamics are everywhere if you look. Consider two friends. One forgives every slight. They explain away hurt. They accommodate repeated bad behavior. Over time, they become the dumping ground. Their boundaries dissolve. They are always available, always responsible for maintaining emotional balance, always overlooked in decisions that matter. The other friend withdraws calmly at the first sign of disrespect. No speeches, no tantrums, no explanations. They do not overreact, but they do not overgive. Over time, they are protected. Their energy is preserved. Their presence commands consideration. The world adapts to their structure. People respect the person who consistently enforces rules because their behavior is predictable but scarce. Respect becomes a currency that is earned, not a gift freely given. This principle is not limited to friendships. Workplace hierarchies, romantic partnerships, family dynamics, even casual social networks operate under the same rules. Employees who overgive are tasked endlessly. Partners who over-accommodate are taken for granted. Leaders who over-explain are subtly undermined by those who read the gaps. Conversely, those who regulate investment, who reward behavior selectively, who calibrate presence, attention, and assistance, create scarcity. And scarcity is value. People adjust their expectations around them. They hesitate before crossing boundaries. They weigh actions carefully. They anticipate consequences. Over time, you are not approached because of what you offer. You are approached because of who you are. That is long-term authority. To implement this in your life, begin with invisible rules. Define your boundaries internally before you ever communicate them externally. Let behavior teach lessons faster than speeches ever could. Reward respect immediately. Withdrawal must be calm, silent, and predictable. Do not justify. Do not argue. The person who can tolerate discomfort longest wins the frame, and long-term ruthlessness is the discipline of consistently tolerating discomfort without leaking. Watch the pattern of interactions over months. Note where you are being exploited. Correct with quiet consistency. Do not overextend. Do not over-explain. Let time compound the effects. The world will adapt to you if your rules remain stable. The effect of mastering this rhythm is profound. You are no longer chased for what you give, no longer exhausted trying to maintain emotional equilibrium for others. You are not needed. You are engaged. You are not expected. You are anticipated. People approach you because of your consistency, your scarcity, and your containment. Your influence grows without effort. Power is not forced. It accrues. Over months, even years, your posture, deliberate, controlled, unwavering, becomes a psychological architecture that others navigate around. The quiet fortresses built with ruthlessness and discipline protect your energy, elevate your authority, and ensure that kindness, when offered, carries weight and is no longer a vulnerability. Respect, obedience, and influence are no longer fleeting. They are structural. You were taught that kindness makes you safe, that generosity shields you, that patience earns approval, that explaining yourself prevents conflict, that ruthlessness is wrong, that asserting boundaries is selfish, cold, even dangerous. All of it is a lie. Safety does not come from being liked, it comes from structure. Power does not come from giving freely. It comes from discipline. Discipline over your attention, your energy, your reactions, your access. The world does not reward virtue in isolation. It rewards containment, predictability, and scarcity. Those who leak endlessly, who flood the space with goodwill, who forgive patterns instead of incidents, are often the most exhausted, the most overlooked, and the most manipulated. Those who master themselves, who understand the dynamics of first contact, pressure, and time, control outcomes invisibly, effortlessly, ruthlessly, without malice, without chaos. Throughout history, the strongest figures were rarely the loudest. They were not cruel, they were contained. They did not beg for understanding, they did not over-explain, they did not expend energy proving that they were good or moral. They understood human nature, its vulnerabilities, its drives, its reflexes, and they built systems around it. Napoleon did not dominate Europe by pleading or flattering. He did it by calculated presence, control of information, and disciplined leverage. The pharaohs did not hold the Nile through kindness. They held it through ritual, hierarchy, and scarcity of access. Machiavelli and Sun Tzu did not instruct armies to be heartless. They instructed leaders to be deliberate, to structure environments so that human weakness and error revealed themselves predictably. Power is not about morality. It is about architecture. Architecture of perception, behavior, and consequence. Modern psychology confirms these timeless truths. Humans repeat what is rewarded. Humans avoid what is ignored or punished. Emotional exposure, if uncontrolled, becomes an invitation. Boundaries, if enforced consistently, become respect. The person who is predictable yet scarce is never overlooked. The person who contains energy, regulates presence, and withdraws strategically, commands attention without effort. Every interaction becomes a lever. Every decision becomes a calibration. Over time, your energy becomes rare. Your time becomes valuable. Your identity becomes untouchable. To claim this power, begin with a ritual. Write the words, "I am untouchable." Not as arrogance, not as boasting, as a reminder, a structural anchor for the new version of yourself. Begin to move slower. Speak less. Let silence do the work your explanations cannot. Withdraw earlier from engagements that drain you. Reward selectively, giving only when the situation, behavior, or person warrants it. Let scarcity be your tool, consistency your armor. Over time, interactions that once scattered your energy become predictable. People adjust to your rules. They calibrate themselves to your boundaries. You are no longer negotiating for respect. You are holding it, not aggressively, but structurally, not emotionally, but architecturally. Visualize the transformation. The old version of you, the one who overgives, overexplains, overexposes, dissolves. Its presence fades like mist under sunlight. In its place emerges a quieter, firmer identity. You are calm where others panic. You are firm where others yield. You are observed where others are ignored. You are scarce, and scarcity is power. Your presence, even when silent, shifts dynamics. The storms of pressure, expectation, and manipulation no longer sweep through you. They swirl around you, revealing the weak and the unprepared, while you remain intact, contained, untouchable. Understand this final truth. Kindness alone does not protect. Ruthlessness alone does not dominate. The synthesis of power lies in disciplined containment, strategic generosity, calibrated withdrawal, and the consistent application of rules over time. You do not need to be cruel to be powerful. You need to be structured. You need to be scarce. You need to regulate yourself. You need to be untouchable. Respect is not earned by pleading. Authority is not inherited by giving. Influence is not created by explaining. Boundaries are not requested. They are enforced. Scarcity is not negotiable. Control is not optional. Your identity is the strongest weapon you possess, and the world will respond to it if you hold it with consistency. Write it, repeat it, own it. I am untouchable. Let the old version of you fade. Let the new version, disciplined, contained, scarce, and sovereign, rise. Because in the end, There is a single, immutable rule that governs every interaction, every system, every hierarchy. Respect and boundaries are commanded, not given.